This video covers soup to nuts, how to outline a house. This video is going to cover all the different types of lights, such as nodes, strips, and bulbs. We'll talk about the controlling methods, controllers, receivers, links, power, all that. We'll talk about pixel density, and we'll also talk about permanent versus seasonal installation. And we'll get a few other nuggets in along the way. Now, what is a house outline? House outline is simply just putting lights on the outside of your house. In this example here, we have somebody who has decided to outline various different parts of their house. And that may be specific areas like, the gutter or soffit. But it also can be, in this case, this customer has a hand railing that they want outlined, windows, doors. So it can be any area of your house. Now, each of those areas may require unique mounting methods, and some areas may be permanent, some areas may be seasonal. So we'll consider those types of things as we move along. I am David, founder of HolidayCoro, and I have helped hundreds and hundreds of people design house outlines for every conceivable thing. Also, many commercial outlines. This will be focused on residential designs though. All right, so our first factor we need to consider is this permanent or is this seasonal? Now, if we're doing seasonal installations, these types of pixels, in this particular case, this is seasonal installation with pixel pipe, and this product is actually designed to be removed year after year. It's not designed to be left up. You may deal with situations where your homeowners association does not allow permanent lights on a house, or you may not like the aesthetics of any kind of light that's on there that's permanently installed. Now, we do have different types of mounting methods. Some are more visible than others. So consider those types of things when you are looking at whether you do a permanent versus seasonal. Now, if you are doing a permanent installation, you do need to consider a few extra things. First is controller location. In a permanent installation, we will typically mount controllers into attics or concealed spaces because these need to be around all year round, and we don't want them out and exposed where possible, and also for aesthetic reasons. So consider where you're going to be running your cables. Also, that controller needs to be accessible in the sense that it needs to be able to have its playback sequences updated. And if that's an SD card or if that's over the network, that needs to be considered. So you may need to bring a network cable up to the controller in question. All right. And again, as I mentioned, you may need to mount those inside of an attic, as opposed to, let's say, a seasonal installation where you can kind of get a little more willy-nilly and put the boxes on the outside of your house and not have to be really particular about the cabling and stuff. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about pixel density and spacing. So a lot of people have questions. Now, we are going to first start talking about nodes, which is the most common and most durable type of pixel, probably used in about 70+% of all house outlines. How many pixels you need is a function of what you're ultimately trying to accomplish. So in this particular design, you can see that these are set on 2-inch spacing. So the pixel pipe product here has a pixel here. There's a 1-inch spacing, so this hole is empty, and then we have a pixel, and this is 2-inch spacing. 2-inch spacing is the most common spacing for a house that is going to be at street viewing distance. So let's see if we can find a picture that's a little better here. So this is 2-inch spacing in this particular installation. If you're sitting at around 50 to 75 feet, that will be perfectly fine. Now, you don't want to go too dense. 1-inch spacing might be tempting. That's going to require more pixels, more power, and you're going to have shorter runs because we have a limit of how many pixels we can run on any given output. So generally speaking, closer pixels just means more cost across the board, whether that's in pixels or in controlling. 2 inches, again, a very common amount for house outlines. You don't want to get super close pixels. This is very common in pixel strips. For example, in products like 60/60 strip, these pixels are spaced at 3/4 of an inch apart. Now here they look nice and fine, they're all individually visible, but when you take and put those pixels onto a house and view them at 50 or 75 feet, these pixels will sometimes color mix. So you can get red and green and end up with a yellow, for example, because by the time they're at the viewer's eyeballs, those pixels actually have merged into what appears to be one, and those colors are now mixing. So we want to balance between enough pixels to do great effects, but not too many pixels that we end up with color mixing or just extra cost. So for the same reason that your TV in your house is not made with pixels close in the same way that your phone is, that applies here. Now, if you want to say, hey, I want to see what different spacing looks like on my house, there's a great way to do that. You can simulate that entire thing right here inside of X-Lights. And we have a video how to use X-Lights to determine pixel density during design. And this video goes through an entire process of using this particular house for a house outline and allowing you to scale that. Now, how do you know to put the pixel density in there within X-Lights? Well, that all starts with measurements. You'll need to get out and actually measure your house. Now, I do not recommend using apps. I recommend actually getting a tape measure out and measuring those distances. You will need to do that at some point. Why? Because when we go into X-Lights, if we're using X-Lights to simulate a design, we want to make sure that we have the right number of pixels. For example, if we're going to outline this window, we need to measure out. In this case, you can see that it is 77 inches by, and I can't really see what that other number is. When we put those pixels in, we're going to say, okay, get the calculator out, 77 divided by, let's say we're doing 2-inch spacing. That means we need 38 pixels at that distance. How do you know that? Again, you must know that first number of 77 inches wide by your spacing to know how many pixels we're going to draw into X-Lights to simulate that. All right, now we also need these numbers when we're calculating the total number of pixels required. Of course, if you've got, let's say 77 plus 77 plus, let's say it's 58 plus 58, that's how many inches are around that window. How many pixels will we need? Well, we divide it by our ultimate spacing, 2-inch in this case, 135. So we would need to accommodate that for the entire design. Now, I will recommend that if you are using a single pixel type for the whole house outline, which is also recommended, keep the spacing the same. It can look a little odd if you end up with 2-inch spacing around your windows and let's say 3-inch spacing along the house outline. It just looks better when it's all one spacing. All right, so don't put too many pixels in there. That does tend to occur mostly with strip-based products, and we'll talk about the different types of pixels. But don't be tempted to put too many. It usually is sufficient to just use 2-inch spacing or 3-inch on the wide side. Now, a few things to consider. Now, you may see some house outlines that are very wide spaced. You'll see these as color washes across this. You'll see products from various vendors that are cheaper, and those will typically have 12 or 18 or 24-inch spacing. That is not what we're designing here. In fact, we don't even sell pixels at that spacing because that's so unusual. We're typically going to be at a 2-inch spacing because we want to do a lot of effects. Now, when you build out your pixels, most of those other kinds of 12, 18-inch spacing products are usually not point specific. In other words, they're not designed to be viewed by the viewer. They are usually what are called wall washes. In other words, they're reflecting the lights down, usually onto your structure, your siding, or the house, and not intended to be viewed directly by an eyeball. Now, you can design for that. So for example, if we come over here, in this particular case, you can see that the outline has a lot of wall wash on this particular design. Now, you are also viewing this and it has floodlights in this particular design. So that's why you have so much wash. This is also a light colored house. But if you look up here where there's no floodlights, you can see that these lights along this window edge here don't have any glow to them. They're not on the outside of the house. So in this particular case, the lights have been faced kind of inwards and down, and they have reflection off of this light colored house. In this particular case, they're nice and clear. They're not reflecting off the house. They're creating a true outline, and they're facing directly at the viewer. They're facing outward. So when we select our mounting method, we want to take that into consideration, because there are down-facing mounting solutions, which again, if you have a surface that is reflective, might be a good choice, or we may need to make it so it's facing outward. All right, so as I mentioned, go out there with the tape measure, map this all out first. You will need these measurements. Don't guess, just take the time now, get your measurements right. That'll save you time later. You can build almost all of these projects on the ground. So in other words, when you're building this, you can build most of these solutions, like in the case of PixelPipe or PixaTrack. You can cut these and build out these sections on the ground, test everything on the ground where it's safe before you ever install it. That requires good measurements so that when you go to put it up there, it will actually fit. So getting those measurements right the first time really just makes sense and saves you the time of estimating and then going back and remeasuring again. So start off with those measurements first. All right, now let's move into the pixel types. We're going to talk about 3 major types that are used. I mentioned nodes, and let's start off by talking about the least used types. First of all, those are strips. Strips, or ribbons as they're sometimes referred to, were used in the past. They are very cheap. It is a very cheap method to get pixels onto your house. They have a couple of serious drawbacks. The first is they are not reliable. They are not really well designed for outdoor, and they don't have quite the good mounting options. And they tend to be coarser. Now, we could do 30-30 strips. So for example, we could do even a 60-20. That means that a 60-20 in this section here means that there are 60 LEDs per meter. They're controlled in groups of 3, so 3 times 20 is 60. So 3 LEDs here make up 1 pixel. So if you can see in that picture, this 3 pixels right here are all 1 pixel, even though there's 3 separate LEDs. So this is a chunk, this is a chunk. So if you are going to use this product, I would generally recommend a 60-20 at best. That's the highest density I would go to, or a 30-10. And you can see the measurements of these products down here and what their spacing is. So each of these is a 1.97 or 50 millimeter, or roughly 2 inches per section. So 2-inch chunk. So this would effectively be 2-inch spacing, but with 3 LEDs in there. Now, where do you put that? You can mount that using a track solution. There are various different vendors, and here's our product right here, and this will mount most of our pixel strip products. It screws into your house. This is aluminum, this is an acrylic cover, and you simply just put the strip into there. There's videos here that show how that works. Now, this doesn't have really any other options than flat mounting, so if you are going to mount it, you will typically just mount that into a soffit, possibly onto a fascia. So take that into consideration when you are using that. All right, strip is not commonly used. We probably quote it on less than 5% or even less displays. Again, not recommended mainly because it is not reliable. It is also hard to solder strips, and they are very fragile. All right, so the next common type of bulb is going to be a C9 style. So if you're looking for a more traditional looking display that doesn't look more disco, RGB, that's real tight pixels, neonish, if any of that kind of seems weird to you and you want a look that's really traditional, these bulbs are the way to roll with that. They are C9 style, they're visible all the way around, and they will allow you to have gappings of either 4, 8, or 12 inches. This will look traditional. You can mount these with most traditional C9 style mounting clips. So if you have gutter clips, shingle clips, ridge clips, those types of things, most of those clips will mount these standard C9 style pixel bulbs. Now, another advantage to a C9 bulb is because there's just so few bulbs in the overall length, that means you can go really long distances. So in this particular case, we can run 100 bulbs at 100% output over one single output. What does that mean? So if you're using, let's say, 8-inch spacing, and we're using 8 inch times 100 pixels, we can run 800 inches divided by 12, 66 linear feet of lights, one output, with full power. If we extend that out to 150 bulbs at 50% output, we can go 150 times 8-inch spacing, which is a common spacing is 8 inches for house outline. And you can see that that divided out is 100 linear feet. That means that for most houses, you could literally use one output go 100 feet one way, one output go 100 feet another way. So that means that we don't need a lot of pixels for each individual output. And we'll talk about power here in a bit because there are limits as to power and data. So this is also available in a 12-inch, which could even get you further than an 8-inch. You want a little more control, but a traditional look, but not neon-y, then a 4-inch is going to be a good choice here. All right. Strip is probably C9 bulbs are typically used probably in about 10% of displays, maybe a little bit more. So the next king of the mountain here is going to be nodes. And nodes are traditional 12 millimeter nodes. They are well proven. They've been around for 15 plus years. They are very reliable, super durable, easy to repair, and will last years. People have permanent house outlines, been going on for 10 years with pixel nodes, still running fine. As I mentioned, repairs are also easy because you can take out one pixel and easily replace it. It doesn't require a lot of complex things like it does with strip. Bulbs are also easy to repair too. All right, now you'll purchase a pixel node string, and in this particular case, we're looking at a 3-inch spacing. This spacing just needs to be wider than your actual real spacing. And we're going to talk about the mounting methods. Now, when we talk about power consumption here, on these, we generally can run 200 pixels at 50% output. We can run about 125 pixels at 100% output. You can reach as much as 250 pixels at 30% output. And if you're not sure what the percentage is, we're just going into the controller and telling the controller or software, hey, I don't want you to output full power. Now, you might think you're going to get 30% light compared to 100% light. That is not true. Most people cannot even visually tell the difference between 100% light and 70% light because the LED lights are linear, but our eyeballs don't see linear. So, what does that mean? Let's say we go to the most extensive length. Let's say we want to do 250 pixels at 30% output. And let's say we're going to do 2-inch spacing. So, 250 times 2, so we got 250 pixels times 2-inch spacing. That means we can go 500 inches, and we divide that out to 12. We can go 41 linear feet on a single output of a controller using 12 volts and 2-inch spacing. And we want to do that at 3-inch spacing, for example, 250 times 3-inch divided by 12 gets you 62 linear feet. So that allows you to hit a lot of houses where you can go left one side, left the other, and you're well under 120 total linear feet. All right. Now, these nodes have a lot of mounting options. So let's now go through those mounting options. So the first is PixaTrack. And so we'll just look up PixaTrack here. This is actually going to be code 1800, so you can just put in 1800 to get to this product right here. This product right here is technically designed for seasonal installation. This product can also be used in ways that are not house outlines. We can see it here being used along a fence outline, but it is a great way to use for a house outline. Here we've got it mounted right up underneath the gutter, so it has really good look. It's facing downward in this particular case. So this house is a nice pure white. You are going to get some cast glow off of this, so you're going to have a little bit of wall wash because this product is facing downward. And if the customer had wanted to have a more of an facing outward, they would have needed to either space this off, and we'll talk about some of the spacers, bring it down, and then tweak it to make it face outward so it would not have a glow on the house. So you can design this exactly the way you want. Now, this product is also available in 3 colors: a white, kind of an off-white, for most houses, a black, and a natural finish. This is all aluminum, and these are all pre-punched. These are all covered except for the mill finish aluminum in powder coated material. So these will not rust, and these are sold in boxes of 131 linear feet. And they're sold in boxes, not individual pieces, because of shipping restrictions. And why is that? We try to make these as long as possible. So this is the longest we can get out the door and still ship to you reasonably priced. And that means they are 87 inches long, or 7.3 feet. Why does this matter? That means also 88 holes in each one. That means that each of these sections, instead of being smaller, means you can do longer runs. That means they're easier to store. You don't have to make as many splices and as many connectors. That when you're building around a window, you can have a contiguous piece instead of sections. And so longer pieces are definitely better. So those are sold in sections. So I do recommend when you're purchasing this, because with any of these projects, they're all customized. If you're using a window, and let's say your window is 66 inches and you're starting with an 89-inch piece, you may cut that down and get down to a part that is not really usable for another section of your house. So go ahead, and I recommend ordering an extra 10%. So if you have 100 feet, great, you're going to be okay. You got extra space in there. But if you need more than 131 feet, add in that percentage. You can select those colors here. If you want to just test out this product and kind of understand it, you do have the ability to order samples here in each of the colors to see if they color match your house. You can find the rest of the specifications down here. A few other recommendations on this product. We do recommend that your pixels be warm, not cold, so don't put them in when they're really cold. If you need to heat them up in an oven at, let's say, 100, 120 degrees, do that. Get them out in the sun. That will make them easier to install into the pipe. Also, a product that will make it easier to install is our Pixel pliers. The Pixel pliers are code number 871, and these will grab your pixels and push them into the pipe. I'm also going to give you a link here for the product that allows you to hold the pipe upside down in a track while you install them. All right, so let's go to that. So we have Pixel pipe accessories here. We're going to skip that, and we're going to first talk about how we mount the Pixel pipe. Now, how Pixel pipe came into existence is this pipe is literally half-inch nominal PVC pipe sold in the United States. Half-inch pipe is not half-inch. It's actually about 0.8 inches. And originally, we used to drill holes into PVC pipe, very long and laborious. The pipe wasn't flat. This product is flat on one surface and has a slot in the back of the product. And that allows you to put your pixels through here. But it has a curved surface. That means you can dial in the direction to a degree that you're facing the pixel out to your viewer. Well, that must mean you have something that's circular here. This product here is the mounting clip 770. These are special clips. They are not made from PVC pipe. We do not recommend PVC clips, even though you can use them. This is a special US made resin that is super UV resistant and designed for high temperature ranges. So it's designed to work in the winter, in the summer. You leave these up permanently on your house, and they're clear so you won't see them. So in most cases, you can leave these on a house. Your HOA is not going to go nuts over if they're not matching exactly, because this is not a colored product. It's a clear product. So what are they? This is shown here in its original form, which is usually used with PVC pipe. This is how we used to mount them, zip tying. And what you're going to do is put a screw through this. Now the screw you'll use will depend upon your particular substrate. That might be into HardiePlank. It might be a metal piercing screw if you're using metal. Something better suited that's a more grippy screw if you're using plastic, like in a vinyl. So consider those types of screws specific to your project. Now, this will be mounted into your area. We generally recommend these about every 3 to 4 linear feet. So if you've got a 10-foot section, go ahead and use 3 clips. Don't use 2. If you're using a 12-foot section, you could get away with 3 or 4 clips. And these clips, because they are circular, allow you to rotate that product inside there. And you can see some examples of this in these videos down here. All right. So take into account, again, your clip. Now, there's a special little clip add-on. It's item code 771. Now, when you're working with a product here, and it is, let's go to our pipe, and we'll show you an example of this. 2 cases where you might want to take into consider the spacers. In this particular case, this customer has nearly, I think, flush up against this aluminum flashing, and it's directly connected. And you'll see a little bit of, I think maybe we can find a better picture. You can see a little bit of smooshing. Now, in this particular case, you can see a spacer used to gap this off of the face of this fence, because the pixels are behind here and a little too close. So when you have that, I think we can probably also find another picture of it on the outline. Here we go. So if you want to make this come down, and let's say in this particular case, this customer maybe wanted to curve it and have it facing more towards the viewer instead of straight down, they would have needed to come down below the bottom of this gutter, because their fascia is sitting up above, higher than the gutter. The gutter's below the fascia. So those are both cases where a extension spacer would be useful. What these are, they're just little pieces of plastic that then attach inward right here, and they clip onto the bottom of this clip. And so this then just clips on, and these give you a 1/4 inch gap for each one. And they literally just stack. You can see that they are indexed. They have an inside, and those just slide in, clip into, to some degree, into this clip here. And there's a hole all the way through that you then plunge your screw through. So if you are purchasing screws, make sure that you're accounting for any kind of spacer here. So if you're not sure if you need these, just buy them. They're not expensive. Do take into account that you may need more than one. You may need a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch. We generally would suggest at least 1/2 inch of gapping in many cases. Okay, so that's how you get the clips onto your house here. Now let's talk about some of the accessories that may apply in special circumstances, because we have a whole host of adapters and clips available. So what we're looking at here are X connectors. Now, if you want to create the sense of, let's say, a mullion in a design, because this pixel pipe product can be used in more complex setups. So let's say you want to do a four-way setup or something like that, you can get an X. You can see they come in black and white. We do have corner pieces that make 90s without a hole and with a hole. And then we have them in black, white, and clear. I will recommend the clear in general. These are stronger and more UV resistant than the black and whites. Shown here are clips that allow you to cover up the holes. Generally speaking, these pixel pipes are so far away from the viewer, it's not worth it to put the covers in them. This will fill a hole and hide that. These are also the clips that go into the end of pixel pipe, and those allow you to cover up the end piece. Let's see if we can get you a little picture of that there. And right here, if you need to cover up this clip because let's say you have something that's accessible to the viewing public and you want to make it clean and capped, you can do that. Probably an unusual circumstance. This is also an unusual clip. This has a screw portion here that you can use with the extensions, that the 771s. And this is a 90-degree turn. If you have a really unusual, like a flat surface where you want to get these facing in a different direction, either vertically or horizontally, it also comes with a screw to go through there. So you would put your clip here, and then this would go into the area where you're going to attach it, which also you can see here has a ability to use the spacer. So all kinds of different options here. Now we do also have a few other options. We have this. Let's go back here. Let's see if we can find you the parts here. We do have a jig, and what this jig here is for, it allows you to align these to the holes in the pipe and then make perfect cuts so that the spacing remains perfect. So you put this in the hole and then you mark it here with a pencil, or if you're doing a 90-degree miter cut, you can then put them in here. That allows you to make a perfect edge. They also have, let's see if we can find that here, the jig. This jig, generally we recommend purchasing 2 of these. What you do is the pipe lays in here. You see there's some screws down here. Screw that to a bench, and if you put 2 of them in, you can actually slide the pipe across them. It'll hold both ends, and what this does allows you to push your pixel upside down, so you're working from the back side of the open end of the pipe and pushing the pixels through. It provides support so that your pixel face is going into the bottom of this jig and then you're pushing from the back side. Just makes it easier to put them in. All right, so each one of these parts is available here. Of course, if you ever have any questions with any of this, just let us know. You can also view the videos down here. There's some videos that explain each one of these parts, how these all go together, how those jigs and all those types of parts work. All right. Now, we will next talk about how you wire something like this up. So let's take into account the actual construction of a pixel pipe project. Now, if you are building out your pixel pipe project and it is a temporary installation, you are going to want to have sections. So let's say here, and in that particular case, it looks like the customer has a break here. So let's say this is a 7-foot section. They break it and then they continue on to another connection. In that particular case, we need a connection that allows us to disconnect these. So when we're storing these sections, we don't want to store a 14-foot section. We want to store a 7 and a 7. So with that in mind, what we want to do is have a waterproof connection between these 2 sections. How do we do that? We will use item number 823. So you go here. This is the male and female sections of a waterproof connection, our standard X Connect plug. And what you're going to do is you're going to put those between those sections. So you're going to come up here, put in your pixels to that section, and let's say we have to break this. You'll put that in there. You'll put as many pixels as you need, put a waterproof connection, male and female, and then continue on. Now, your pixels may have some plugs, but you may need some extra plugs because let's say you have to put in 100 pixels. You have to, let's say, have that over a 25-foot section. And in that particular case, you may need several breaks, let's say 3 breaks. All right, so take those into consideration here. Now, how you can attach those is using solder shrink tubes. They're here. And those are really good for having a good mechanical and waterproof connection. So you can add them right here on this option. I'm just going to go ahead and show you the product directly. So it's item code 177. And there are videos here on how to attach these to your product and use these. It's basically cut, strip, stick these in there, heat them up, they solder, they waterproof, all in one big go. Super easy, very reliable method, super cheap. We also have push connectors. If you would like to use traditional push connectors like this, you can see a video on how to do that down here. You really just take the wires, cut them off, separate them, push them in here, slam the door shut on these, and you'll make a connection between your 2 sections. These products also work well for splices to repair pixels. All right, now let's get into the other limits that are existing on pixels. It's just a physics limit. Now we already talked about how many pixels you can put in with pixel nodes. Now the pixels, again, I had recommended earlier either 711, that is 50 count pixels at 3-inch spacing, and 694, same pixel, just 100 count string, 3-inch spacing. Now it does say 3-inch spacing. Technically, they are really, that's just a nominal number. They're really about 3.4 inches in spacing. So you actually have a little bit of gap. We give you a little bit of wiggle room there. Now, if you're building something up to 3 inches in spacing, that's fine. I wouldn't normally recommend anything wider than that, but if you should want to go wider, let's say up to 6 inches of spacing, item code 712 is appropriate for you, and you can see there's a lot of gap between those. Okay, now we talked about the limits. We want to keep these under 200 pixels at 50%. That's a normal number. Now, the only other limit you need to take into consideration is 25 feet. Now, if you look at this photo, you'll see that the customer has written down here, power supply here if possible under deck. Now, if you're mounting, let's say in this particular case, it looks like maybe it was a permanent installation. If you put this control box here, or controller or receiver, whatever it may be, down here, that means that you can only go 25 feet from here to the start of any string. Now, if you can hit all strings at their starting point and no more than 25 feet, you're golden. If you can get the cable up here, around there, and then maybe hit this corner, go up here, go over here, and around there, and that's all under 25 feet, no problem. If you can go up here, go over, hit this window, great, 25 feet. If you cannot, you will need another output. You may hear other numbers, maybe 30, maybe you'll hit 35, maybe you've heard of a guy that's done 40 feet from the controller to the first pixel, that's great. We do not support that number. We support and guarantee 25 feet will always work every time. So you might have a little wiggle room with 30 feet. Anything beyond that, you need multiple boxes to control that. In this particular design, we would typically put a box over here and a box over here. Now, we might normally put even a box up on the second floor here, kind of in the middle, hitting all these over here, fitting all these. But that would probably not work for a permanent installation. But for a seasonal installation, having a control box up here on this part of the roof, probably not a huge deal. Put another box down here, get the cables going. So when you're considering where to put your boxes, consider where the starting point of each one of these strings are and start from there. Now, I will say an important note, do not start your strings in the middle of a window or door. Don't start them up here in the middle. Don't start them here and then try to go around. Always start them at a corner. And in particular, X-Lights loves this left corner, but you can switch them to the right corner or the upper corner. But don't start them here and try to go around X-Lights does not like that. And X-Lights will have a window option. It'll say how many pixels across, how many pixels up, and it'll be able to draw that. All right, so 25 feet is the number from where you mount your box to where your pixels are. Now, if you need help with controller selection, because this is a complex area, feel free to reach out to us at holidaycoro.com/long long range, not that. Contact us and we'll be happy to help you with getting the right controlling hardware. We can often use, instead of multiple controllers, we can use long range receivers. And in this particular design, we might just put a 4-output long range over here and then put a main controller here. We would take that into consideration across your entire display, because you may have also some candy canes down here. You might have some matrix up here. You might have some reeds, spinners, or other stuff going on. And so we want to take that into the overall context, because we don't need to just consider the house outline control. We need to consider the whole house. All right, so that gets us through Pixel Pipe. Hopefully you have got all that information. Again, primarily a solution designed for seasonal installation, though some customers do use Pixel Pipe for permanent installation. Now, the next option is PixaTrack, and you can just type PixaTrack up here in the search box, or you can type the number 1900. And PixaTrack is designed for generally permanent installation. I guess you could use it for seasonal, but normally it's designed for permanent. And the reason for this is that it is fully enclosed. That has some advantages in that, because it is a fully enclosed product, that means that all of your wires are completely encased. That's for two reasons. One, that keeps any kind of animals out of it, for any kind of squirrels chewing on wires, that kind of thing. Also, it prevents any kind of UV damage to the pixels, because UV damage, if there's the wire exposed, especially non-black colored wire, will wear out and get UV damage quicker. Also, it keeps those HOAs out of your hair, because they can't see the wires, and this usually will blend in with your house. Now, we do sell this product in both a white and brown configuration. Here's the brown. And the white, it's actually kind of an off-white to match your house, not a pure white. And as with the other products, you can order samples here of this product if you want to kind of test it out and see how that works. Now, how this product works is pretty simple. What we have is, and by the way, if you need a little bit more detail, you can come down to the bottom and watch the videos that show the product in use. Here's a side profile of the track, and what you've got here is a lip on each side with 1.6 inches of spacing. That allows you to install most pixel nodes. You can use square nodes, but normally you'd use bullet nodes. And there's the face of the product. You put your pixels in. These are centered 1 inch. If you're using 2-inch spacing, again, skip each hole. It will be fine. And what you'll do is you'll have a clip that goes at the top. That will screw into the house, and you then simply pinch these two walls together and push it into the clip. That allows you, and you can see that in detail on this video right here on the product page, that allows you to easily remove the product if you need to, but still it remains completely mounted and secure on the house. Now, additionally, in addition to being brown and white, we do have a side and front or downward facing clip track. So, in this particular product, these are all showing front side. If you want your pixels to have a front facing pixel and you don't want them down facing, you can get side profile. And that's the same thing, except for the pixels are facing on the side of the product. All right, now this product works pretty much the same as Pixel Pipe. There's a lot less accessories because we already are using a mount that comes with the product. that are included in with the product. They are also colored to match the house so that you won't see them if they are mounted. These do come in a track of 10 per box, getting you 66 total feet. This product is in one single link, 6.6 linear feet. Same thing applies here. Order a little bit more, usually 10% more than you would expect for those. Now we do have two types of accessories for it. We have an end cap, which you can see here. Just goes on the end, keeps it looking cleaner if you have an endpoint that is visible. And you can also get it with a 90-degree. It's not shown here, but you can get a 90-degree corner in white and brown also. Now, in this type of installation, you can use waterproof connections, and that may be helpful if you have to do repairs in the future. If you're bringing your track down and you want to bring down a section of track so that you can repair it, let's say in your garage when it's not cold outside, instead of up on a ladder, you will want to use waterproof connections. So you want to use the same method with the same item number 823 that we used last time with the pigtails. But you can also just permanently mount these. If that works for you, you can just literally solder them in place and make them all one length sections. If you do that, I do recommend item code number 696, and this is effectively, instead of using extension cables or longer wires, you literally just use this cable. It's the same wire that's used in the Pixels. You can still use the solder shrink tubes or the push to connect connectors, and this basically is just longer links. And why would you need this? Let's say you have to jump around a corner and go up and hit an area that's around. Maybe you get up here and you want to go up to a gable or around a corner to another section of the house or go across. That wiring will allow you to do that. All the other same things apply, same number of pixels per output, and then also the 24-foot lengths also still apply. Now, you will need a waterproof connection, such as the 823 going into your controller if it's pre-assembled, and that is this connection, the 823-M, which is the male connector right here. All right. Now, again, I highly recommend you build out your show using X-Lights first in here. Look at this video right here. You can look at the links in the video session below here, or just Google this terminology. And design out your entire display in X-Lights first. And let's talk a little bit about that design first. Now, in this particular house here, this is a pretty cut and dried house. I see no obstacles, but then again, this photo was taken right up close to the house. Not always the ideal way to take a photo of your house because we can't take into account any kind of obstacles. So let's go up and look at our sample house here. This is just a random house, not my house, unfortunately. And this house has some challenges if we were going to put a house outline on it. And those challenges are, okay, first, let's look up here. This tree is a live oak tree, and that's a tree native to Texas. And that live oak, it's not going to lose all of its leaves. It's going to lose some of them, but it will still obscure a good chunk of this side of the house when it is winter. And if you're doing a year-round installation for full-time permanent installation, forget this. If there's a tree in front of it, it's out of the question. Don't bother putting lights here. They're not going to be visible. Now, some other places we need to consider. You'll see that it comes down, and this is obscured here on this downward section of that gable. So if we come over here and view it from here, okay, it's even more obscured by this tree and here. Now, let's look around the side of the house. Some people are tempted to put lights over here. So if we're putting lights on this garage area, not going to look good. They'll all be bunched together because they're in one line. Don't bother putting lights here. Not visible. You could theoretically put your lights up here in this back section. Those would be fairly visible from this location. But what happens if I'm over here? Not visible. Again, if we come over here, we'll see that this particular installation, nothing over here on the side is visible. Now, this house sits on a lake, as you can see down here. Maybe we have lights in the back of the house that face the lake side. Perfectly valid. Now, what do we have that we can install that's nice and clear? Well, we look at this tall area. Doesn't look like these trees right here are going to get too tall in the future. Maybe these, it's hard to say. But what we do have is this nice big gable area right here. We have this gutter fascia right here. And we have this other gable up here. And this section over here. And you could theoretically say up on this ridge line, but I generally don't recommend ridge lines, not only from a safety standpoint, but just roof piercing and those types of things. Also, those ridge lines, when you get over to another area, here they're perfectly visible. They're really good. Get over here. Yeah, not so much. You can see those ridge lines completely disappear. So, this is a challenging house to do a house outline without doing any kind of landscape adjustments. You can see that a house outline is really going to be best suited this area up here, up there on these gables, and over here. You might make a case for some of this ridge line in here if you really want to go all out, but put your money elsewhere in that particular design. I will also say that you do have some area here. This area right here might be suitable for outlining because it does seem to be mostly free of obstructions. And we might also be able to make the case for that front door area. You can see that in some cases, especially if we trimmed up some of this right here, we could see this front area is fairly open. So you might make a case that the front area in the entryway could be outlined. So you can simulate all these things in Xlights. Take that picture not from Xlight or from Google here, not always the best option, and take it from where the eyeballs will be viewing your display. That will show you what your viewers will see because these outlines are generally designed to be viewed by somebody outside the property. All right, we hope this has been helpful. Again, as I mentioned before, if you have any questions, because house outlines are definitely complicated, they have a lot of moving parts, they have a lot of options, you feel free to reach out to us at holidaycoro.com/contact us, and we will absolutely be happy to answer any questions, even including a complete design service. If you listen to this whole thing and think, I don't know anything about any of this stuff, I'd like to have you guys design it. No problem at all. We are happy to do that for you. We do have a process for doing that. We do that at no cost. We will ask you to send an actual measurement picture, and it will look something similar to what we've shown here, where we have the measurements on it. They will need to be accurate measurements. As I mentioned before, don't guess those numbers. That's always a recipe for problems in the future. But we are happy to do those designs for you. And happy holidays. We hope you have a great season.